Hello everyone, it is I, Dark Symphony 777, back with a new video. Make sure to like the video. Let's just get into it. Oh, and subscribe. So, last week I did some of my favorite moments from fanfiction, so I figured I'd do the inverse. Well, originally it was supposed to be the 5 worst, but then 5 best. But let's just get into it. So, the first 3 moments, since honestly, this one's not going to take as long as the good one, because in the good one I had to do like a lot of building up for 2 specific moments. But this one, I have all 5 moments already. They shouldn't take this video shouldn't be as long as the other one. Thank God. These first 3 moments are what I like to call steel beam moments. It is basically what I would call moments that you can condense in all the problems in one specific part of the story. And the steel beam thing comes from this fanfiction, number 1, from Misconception by Sandstorm 3D. I do remember actually reviewing the story. It was a very long story. Like, yeah, it's over a million, but it's actually 800, around 800,000, because even the author kind of missed, like, yeah, if you get rid of like all the authors though, it goes to like around 850,000 words. But in this story, you have the Powerpuff Girls and the Rowdy Rough Boys. They're depowered from Mojo Jojo. Basically, Mojo Jojo laced water with Antidote X that they were drinking, so that way, as they kept drinking more water, their power slowly went away, and now they don't really have they don't have, pretty much almost all their powers are gone. The only thing they have left is like slightly enhanced strength and durability, but they're still human. But they're more or less human. They're just on par as like Olympic strength, not instead of superhuman. And the girls have the Powerpuff Girls and the Rowdy Rough Girls, Powerpuff Girls and Rowdy Rough Boys operate a militia to kind of take down Mojo Jojo and save the world from his tyranny. This specific moment, the steel beam argument, comes from this chapter 86. And at the bottom, I will say I was kind of over exaggerating because it's been so long since I read the story. But I told a friend of mine about this specific issue, and I kind of said it was like 4 to 5 paragraphs of talking about this. I apologize for that. It's actually only really like right here, but I did kind of over exaggerate it, and I gotta feel bad for that. But going back to the context of why I didn't like this story is I love the characters, but honestly the pacing was so atrociously slow and such an unnecessary way to allow more character development that it kind of felt like it's a lot of stuff is just padding just to shove more character depth into the story when it didn't need to. This leads to the steel beam. So in the story, in this chapter, they're finishing up with the 5th raid. Basically, they destroyed a collector's base, which is this big factory that basically creates these giant robots called the collectors. They're kind of seen as like a really, really big thing through like the majority of the story. Like even the Powerpuff Girls and Rowdy Boys are like completely don't want to mess with these things because they would need like their actual powers back in order to even have a chance. And Buttercup is trying to escape, not simultaneously escape, but also keep all of Mojo Jojo's troops and the collectors away from the rest of the squadron. And she's kind of running around, and they're escaping. She kind of met up with some of the people, and they're kind of getting out, and then she trips over a steel beam. And instead of running around, we get Buttercup, running, then face down, eating a pile of dirt and gravel. She stands up, get curses. She looks around. She realizes she tripped on steel beams, and instead of instead of going up and around and getting back into the story, I mean, running around and getting caught that way, the story screeches to a halt. Has Buttercup just stand at that place of just looking at the steel beams, like a small stack of fucking beams just laying on the ground. Who the hell leaves crap like that in the middle of the road? What's with these monkeys? Couldn't they at least organize their shit and move it to the side of the building or something? No, they had to leave it out of the fucking road to be a hazard to everyone's fucking health. Ah, dumbasses. So grumbling, she stands up. She pats down her vest. And then she looks around to see where the rest of her team that she caught up with. And she realized she's all alone. It's like, oh, they're gone. Damn it. And then she blames herself by going like, oh, she was at the end of the group, but she probably didn't know. So, okay, she's about to leave. And then she kind of runs into a collector, and they basically kidnap, and that actually sets up, like, this actually starts, like, the really, really big climax. Like, this is actually the start of when, like, the main base of the resistance, they kind of show up at the ruins of Townville, and then they eventually hunt down. There's one other big part after this before they attack JoJo's base, and that's with the convoy getting attacked. I think it was a convoy, something to do with something. I don't know. I can't remember. But the reason I did not like this and why I think this is emblematic of all the issues of misconception is just an unnecessary, lazy detail to just pad things out and force to change the events, to keep the events going in the way the author wants, instead of letting things breathe naturally. Like, how hard would it have been to, Buttercup trips over the steel beam. She realizes the steel beam. She gets up and she runs off. Instead, the story goes, she trips over the steel beam. She looks at the steel beam. She wonders why they left it there. And then she notices that everyone kind of left her behind. And then she's like, she's behind. And then she goes about to leave, and then she gets caught by a collector. Yeah, it's stuff like this that just makes me wonder some of the decisions in this story just unnecessarily pad out as much as you can to try and get more and more character development as much as you can. And it's such a obnoxious moment, because I still think from a character standpoint, Misconceptions is a great story, but it's just, you can condense all the problems, the pacing problems with this one moment, because it's just so manufactured, so obviously a way to pad things out to get Buttercup just staying there enough for the collector to capture her. It kind of comes off as really, really bad. And it's kind of the same thing with the next two moments. They're pretty much the same thing. They're just a steel beams moment that's just condensing all the problems I have with the story into one moment that you can just easily sum up. Second one is Shrine of Gensokyo. This is my most recent review, because after this I got Headmaster Arc. I'm actually working my way through that. I'm on chapter 15. Yeah, chapter 15. And this actually takes place at I think near the end. Let's see. Where was it? Yeah, right here. So this takes place in chapter 41, near the very end of the story. Now, I did like Shrine of Gensokyo. I really loved the first half, and I think the second half would have been better if there was more padding to bridge the gap between the first half and the second half to better set everything up. All my problems, besides the atrocious writing style, because come on, this is just bad. This is just a horrible writing format. Everything went wrong with the second half of the story comes down to the fact that nothing carries weight. And this moment at the end of chapter 41. So in context, it's the end. It's pretty much the end of the fight between Rimu and Yukari. They're basically throwing out throughout the entire climax, and while everyone's like surrounding Hakure Shrine and trying to ward it off from Yukari's forces. Yukari and Rimu have been like in the sky, just going at it, just nonstop, and Yukari had like threw her like her big final attack, and Rimu actually managed to counter that, but it's left her like really just completely out physically out of it. So Yukari just basically picks her up, she starts kicking and punching her, and then she just throws Rimu into the air and to kind of toss her on the ground. So that way she can so Yukari can kind of just reset things up. And then Marissa shows up at the very end of this chapter. And it's just a weird decision because the entire first half of the story is set up on the basis of the fact that Rimu is specifically looking for Marissa. Yeah. So the entire first half, Rimu going back to Gensokyo, specifically because she wants to know who Marissa is. Goes to Scarlet Diamond, goes to each location because that's where she heard that Marissa was last, and they kind of bleed into each location she goes to. So Marissa just doesn't show up until the very end, and she just offers nothing. She just goes, saves Rimu, but Rimu dies anyway, and then we get the whole thing with Rimu talking to Shigeki again, and Yukari just disappears. It's just, I don't know why the author decided to do things like this, because it's such a baffling writing decision to do any of it this way, because we kind of had a feeling that Yukari once it was revealed that Yukari was kind of behind everything, it's like, okay, Marissa probably was captured by Yukari, which was exemplified by the fact that Yukari had Marissa's mini Hakuro. That's fine. However, one, doesn't reveal where Marissa came from, or specifically how she got out of wherever Yukari kept her. Ran and Chen disappear. They're like just got gone. The fact that the entire first half of the story is just predicated on the fact that everything was connected to just finding Marissa. Like even the whole Gensokyo slowly decaying thing kind of took a backseat to just where Marissa? Oh, where Marissa? Where's Black White? And when you have, let me reword that. Even the whole plot, the central conflict of the entire story, basically Rimu wanting to find what her memories. It's mentioned that whatever caused her to leave Gensokyo for such a long amount of time, basically stemmed from something to do with Marissa. But she just comes out of nowhere with no rhyme or reason, and then Rimu immediately dies. And even afterwards, when she comes back to life, none of it's ever brought up again, because at the end of the story, we don't know why Marissa's here. We don't know where she was. We don't know how she escaped Yukari's clutches, or what the hell went on. What the hell happened? Nothing is answered, and you can easily just go, well then, that was a waste of time. And like going back to this, it just makes me frustrated. So frustrated because how how well done the first half set everything up, and then the second half just squander it. Speaking of that, Mega Man X goes to the machine. The most disappointing fan fiction I've ever read. Good God! you thought the first half of Shrine Against Tokyo I thought was good. No, the first half of Ghost in the Machine was such a monumentally masterful masterpiece that I still think you should recommend this. Like this is like if you remember, let's see, hold on. I need to actually find out what year I reviewed this story in Mega Man X. Mega Man X. Oh wait, Mega Man X. Yeah, 2021. When I did my top 10 fan fiction of 2021, the first half of this story was so strong. I still put it in like number 10 of that year, which shows you how well done the first half of this story is. For context, this story is sort of the finale of this author's like Mega Man novelization. But this one takes place in the Mega Man X world. The rest of the stories take place in the Mega Man Classic series. And the story follows Mega Man X having to politically navigate a sort of hidden sanctuary for old school robot masters that have gained full sentience. So they actually broke broke three broke free of the three Asimov rules no, of AI. No, Asimov's three rules of robots, and the whole colony is operated by King from Mega Man and Base, and also like these all these OCs that are all representative royalty and their whole dynamic. And I really loved all these characters from Duke to Earl to Countess. They were all just immensely well written, and the idea of using the Asimov's three rules as like a key plot point, and like how do you apply that to robots who have free will versus robots who don't really have it from like hundreds of years ago that would still fiercely obey that. And I thought that's actually a really well done setup for a fan fiction, or hell, even not even a fan fiction, just a story in general. And then you get to the end of chapter 8, where X, at this point in the story, X is well aware, well, not just X, but everyone is well aware of the underground city. And X is actually talking to Prince, who is the second command of the whole thing. He only defaults to King. And Prince is actually kind of explaining like how everything operates. Like they operate under the same ideals that Mega Man and Roll and Dr. Light have for Robot Masters, and are just basically trying to help them along. And it kind of stretches into the source of the conflict at this point in the story, where the government of Japan, they don't want this to be secretive. They want everyone to be part of Japan, not their own separate, independent city sort of deal. And they want them to be, and the whole political battle between it, because these guys want to be their own separate nation, because at the end they just want to be left alone, and they want these guys to be left alone and let them explore and be free and explore like all this stuff. Prince even shows like this whole garden, and it shows like all the statues from like various characters throughout that appeared in the Mega Man Classic, like like Mega Man Light and Roll, and even Base when you turn good. And it's such a well crafted moment. And then Prince decides to go to a graveyard that kind of where I think Dr. Light was buried, if I remember right. and he follows it, and he looks. Well, it's him and it's Prince and X. They go to the graveyard to see where Dr. Light is, and Prince sees something wrong because next to Dr. Light is the tombstone of Dr. Wily, because Dr. Wily is long gone at this time. X asked Prince, "Well, what's wrong?" It's like there's a description on Wily's tombstone. It was never there before, and it says, "I will never stop," referencing the fact that some fucking how Dr. Wily is alive. And that leads to this entire second half of the story where everything just randomly changes. Like you have a really well done political drama, and then it switches to like an entirely unnecessary actiony thing where Wily somehow comes back to life, it sees himself as a god, controls the Einhajar warriors from Mega Man 03, starts bossing around Sigma and revives like the X Hunters and Bit and Bite and all that, and kills off a Vile and has Dynamo lead the whole thing, and basically just wage a never-ending war on humanity, just starts killing everyone, and eventually supposed to bridge the gap between the X series and the Zero series, because X decides to turn Wily into Wile, and then you have the intermission where that takes place and reveals that Wily is actually dead. And it just makes no fucking sense. And I just hate this second half. I'm like, why is Wily alive? Why did the author do this? It's like, oh yeah. And then you get to the end as and you find out that the whole point of the second half of the story is the fact that the guy was butthurt over how ZX used the cannon and remarked how you shouldn't use your emotions while writing, and then blatantly revealed by reading the second half that he was using his emotions because you unnecessarily changed the entire second half of the story to an unnecessarily actiony thing that's just justified to kill everyone and set up the events of Zero in such an unnecessary way that it just feels very poor. Oh, I don't know why. I just don't know. I go back. It's coming back to me. It's so bad. And the sad part is it's still well written. It's just so unnecessary. Like, why would you do all this setup for one specific plot? Only they changed the plot mid-story. I do eventually want to talk about this story in more depth. I really do. I don't know. I still gotta do Agent Elevation. But probably after I do Agent Elevation, I'm probably gonna do Ghost in the Machine because, good God, this story needs to be talked about in more depth. I don't like to go into a lot of depth when I do these reviews. I try to do a more surface level thing for the reviews, so that way anyone who watches it can read the stories themselves. But there are some stories that I really wish I could go more in depth in, and that's what the introspection is supposed to be for. But those are rare. I haven't even started on Agent Elevation and stuff like that. But okay, going back to this. Next we have number 4, and I think this one's going to take the longest because I need to actually explain a little bit of context on this one. So this is from Total Drama Everything 2 by Mastercat, and I will say I like this story. I think if I remember right, when I reviewed Total Drama Everything 1 and 2, I said I wasn't really a big fan of 1 because it was very clear the author was new at this whole thing, and she actually confirmed that she was new. This was like one of her first story. But I did like Everything 2, and outside of this one specific instance, and thankfully this is not a Steel Beam thing, This is just a single moment that I personally didn't like. So it's actually coming from this chapter, chapter 14. So for context, this has a Deadpool just going around and just hanging out with various characters from that other contestants were on. So you have Deadpool just randomly going to the beach city and hanging out with the crystal gems. Yeah. No, yeah. Hanging out with the gems, and then he goes to this castle. I can't remember. I honestly can't remember what game Leo is from. Oh, actually, where is that contestant? There it is. Leo from Fire Emblem Fates. So at the end, and Deadpool shows up in the Fates world and basically destroys the entire castle of Leo's father. And I never actually got to explain why I didn't like this moment. Because what this moment does is it basically blatantly tells you that Leo's going to win. And I like the idea. I personally like the idea of keeping things like as vague as possible. Like, see how it can keep you guessing. I understand if you want to like hint towards who might win, but it's just a blatantness of this whole situation because it's not like for instance Total Drama Cruise. The story just tells you who's going to win at the end, but that's like the very last chapter, and it's kind of just thrown in a hilariously in-universe thing that it kind of fits the whole thing because like Murderface tells Eddie, he's like, "You didn't get involved," and Eddie just like it's you don't notice that it's foreshadowing at first, but it's such a clever way of foreshadowing it. But with this is Deadpool busts into the castle, literally destroys the castle. Garen gets understandably pissed, sends a message to Chris saying, if he doesn't, when he wins, and he's gonna win, he has to use all his money to pay to repair the castle. That's no compromise. The author, Master Cat, is already setting these stakes so high that it's basically telegraphing you to the reader that he's going to win. It's such a blatant and obvious way to tell you he's going to win. Now, I will say, like, this whole thing of like the whole ultimatum thing, it worked in Total Alternate Island, but that was one. Heather was more or less the main character in that at that point, more the main antagonist. Two, it was presented as like an interesting facet to her character, especially since in Alternate Island, when Heather's father says it, basically Heather's mother just completely loses it and stops him and says, we're gonna have words," and all the other characters just look at Heather, and Heather just storms out. It's a facet of her personality that kind of shows that there's more in depth. While in Everything 2, it's just blatantly telegraphing who's going to win. And it really doesn't help matters that Leo at this point was kind of like an okay-ish character. I didn't have a problem with Leo winning the whole thing. I think Leo by the end of the story, Leo's character was like, yeah, he's not bad. I think it makes sense for him to win. He had his moments and stuff like that, but it's just this moment with the ultimatum just reeks so hard of just making it obvious that he is going to win. It's why my only real complaint of this story is just this one moment. I think if she goes back and just deletes this moment, I think it would have been better because it would at least it would hide the facts, or even just replace Deadpool running into Garen with anyone else. That at least would keep the idea of Leo winning a secret. And I also really doesn't help that Poison Ivy was just that the whole dynamic between Leo and Poison Ivy in the context of the whole story just reminds me so much of Zoe and Mal from Total Drama All Stars. And I really hate All Stars because of how blatantly obvious they tell you who's going to win and who's going to be in the finals. And it's and this moment kind of reminded me of that. Just like, oh yeah, Ivy's going to make it to the finals. Oh yeah, Leo's going to make it to the finals too, and he's going to win. It's just a bad. It's just really a bad decision all around. And now we got to number 5, and it's from The Lawyer and the Unicorn over on Fanfiction. So I know the author of this is probably got if the author just find out about this because I'm actually friends with a relative of his. I have a feeling he might get pissed about this. But I have to say it. This is not bad in the way of his poor writing. It's bad in a very, very unintentionally hilarious way, and I want to at least bring it up. Like I swear to God, you're gonna laugh at this. So, to bring in the context, Lawyer and the Unicorn. Yeah, it's near the end. Let me get to this. It's near the end. It's around halfway through the story. And in the context of this story, it's a fan-made sequel to the Turnabout Storm novelization that the author also wrote with, and that story got permission from the team who did the Turnabout Storm audio novel, visual novel on YouTube. You can go find it out. It's really well done. A key thing in the novelization is it introduces a specific romantic plot point between Phoenix and Twilight. Basically, they fall in love with each other, and this is the M-rated version of the sequel because he made a T-rated version and an M-rated version. I figured I'm going to when I reviewed the story, I'm going to review the M-rated version, and I like the idea, but it went in too many different directions without any clear, concise direction of what the story wants to be. So I didn't really like it that much. Plus, then again, you got Porter Celestia, but that's kinky. So in this context, picture Phoenix Wright, the suave, charismatic lawyer, and all of a sudden, on the bed right in front of him, he sees the lovely, perplexing plot of one Twilight Sparkle. He reaches down, drops his pants. He realizes his little ding-a-ling turned to a shape of equine nature. I am not making this shit up. Read the story yourself. He goes, Deba, Twilight Sparkle and Phoenix Wright, about to meet sweet love. He puts it in the wrong hole. And then this place! I'm sorry. It's so hilarious. This is so hilariously toned down. Yes, yes, the music I want to hear while Phoenix Wright and Twilight Sparkle are engaging in anal is this guy's name. I read this story. As soon as I thought this, I legit stopped reading and I just lost it for like 5 minutes. Because I pictured, as soon as this music played, Armstrong just storms in, does his whole political spiel, and then just runs out and kills the food. It's so bad. It's so bad, it's hilarious. And I even like pointed out in the comments. Hold on, why is this dark? Wait. Hold on. There we go. No idea why it was like that. So where is it? I even posted a comment because I couldn't help myself. Where is it? There it is. right here. That's gonna be the weirdest thing on this. And even though I didn't choose most of the songs, but I'm just. Oh, come on. It, yes, it was a very sensual scene, but this choice and song was just such a bad choice. It just. Yeah, I'll be son. This moment was honestly, yes. This song is exactly what we need to describe anal. Yeah, I'm actually crying laughter. So that is. So why is this moment bad? It's not bad. It's just this is the worst choice to describe the song. Yes. Let's hurry. I had to talk about this moment because it's just a massive interrupting thing. The rest of the songs in the story, they're actually fine. It's just this story in particular is just so. Sorry, I just. So yeah, that is 5 moments, and I did not like. Leave a comment in the comment section below on moments in fan fictions that you didn't like, but they have to be moments. Not they can't be for your own stories. And make sure to like the video. This has been Dark Symphony 777 and cut.